Hello, and welcome to the Steve and Mark Discuss podcast, where Steve has once again been looking through some media items and has selected something to discuss. So, over to Steve.
Hi, people. Once again, it's important to note, to be honest with the people who are watching the podcast, that at this moment in time, it's 7 o'clock at night. Normally, we do these podcasts in the morning time. It's 7 o'clock at night, and way past happy hour time. So when I finish this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make up for lost time, I think.
Yeah.
For those who know what happy hour is, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I was following on really to the podcast that we did about immigration to the UK and why, and the numbers that are going, and also to the US. You know, the numbers that are going to the US. If you draw the camera back and look from further back, you'll see that Europe, mainland Europe, is also suffering a lot from this sort of immigration, these asylum seekers. And there are over 1 million of them waiting to come into Europe. They are held up at the borders of the outer borders of the EU, in the northern part of the EU, waiting to come through because the borders won't allow them. Interesting to note that Cyprus is. Who would have thought that Cyprus would have a problem with immigration? But Cyprus, 10% of the population now of Cyprus are immigrants. A recent phenomenon of the influx of immigration. Germany, when Angela Merkel said, "Come on down," you know, and beckoned all the non-German people to come to Germany. There was an influx that got so bad that even Angela Merkel said there are too many immigrants here. And of those immigrants, 80% of those immigrants that were invited to go to Germany are unemployed. 80% are unemployed. And still, the present chancellor in Germany says they do not have enough migrants in Germany. He's wanting to import even more. I think what might happen is that when the north of the EU allows the migrants through, that they're all, you've heard of the trickle-down effect. Well, I think that most of them are going to trickle down and up down to the English Channel and come across to the UK. There will be a huge influx of people crossing the English Channel to go to the UK. So, you know, the British government needs to be aware of that. You know, that once the northern parts of Europe, the people get past these frontiers, they're going to come down and attack and flood into not only just EU countries but also into the UK as well, for sure. Ask them why. Because they get looked after, basically, is what most of them are saying. You know, because they get looked after in the UK. You know, it's more generous than the other EU countries. So we can have a little chat about that, and if we've got time, I'd like to chat about the schools in the UK as well, the school buildings in the UK, because that needs to be looked on as well. So let's have a good chat about the frontier, the borders in EU first. And if we've got time, then we can talk about schools.
Right. Well, I saw an interesting thing the other day, basically about the birth rates, and I think we've discussed it, but I've seen it about the birth rates across Europe and the UK have been decreasing for whatever reasons. I mean, this is, I mean, our society now has gone down from, multiple children being born into families to one if you're lucky. I mean, a lot of us have been getting married later. I'm guilty of that as well, my wife, but um, some things don't happen. Um, and I remember like I said, I remember in the 80s being taught at school, oh, there's going to be too many people. And this has been programmed into younger people, not directly by my teachers. I don't remember that. You go to a Catholic school, even then, they weren't talking about prevention of population. They were still talking about, you know, um, sensible relationships, if you understand what I mean by that. And creating more Catholics almost. Um, Ideally, priests, nuns as well. Um, it's a very very strange thing. Yes, across the population's been decreasing. Possibly in Africa and other regions, it's increasing. I don't know the latest statistics and other territories as well. I also
Yeah,
I also saw in Japan that their population is decreasing at a very rapid rate, and possibly by 2050 or the end of the century, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. There's not going to be any Japanese left. Okay, you're always going to get the doomsayers with these things on both sides. Okay. Um, Now, is immigration good? Of course it is. It keeps the gene pool active. It's there you go, getting into it. It also, it can fill holes that maybe need filling, so to speak. Um, and it's a and it's good to bring in new ideas and everything else. Any of us won't disagree with that. We're immigrants to another country. We're here by choice. Um, Sometimes, people ask me why. But so really, what's been happening is that really some people have been discouraged from having children. Society in the 60s changed. That contraception became much more readily available for people. Happy days. I'm going to mention it. Abortion is something else that happens, that you can be, without being controversial, you can have your fun, but don't have to reap the consequences of it, to put it bluntly. Um, Controversial thing to say. Okay, I'll put it out there. Um, we know what abortion is. And there's lots of different factors at play here. Fertility rates in males has been going down. I can't give a reason for that. You'd have to speak to probably somebody who's a professional medical person. Maybe it is in women as well. Again, I read these things. I don't really understand it. That is not my field of knowledge. Or my field of understanding. Um,
from
and
yeah,
again, yeah.
from what I've discovered from several um, talks given by people who have studied
Mm,
the population
yeah,
in Africa in the 60s and 70s.
mm,
It was 7 children for one woman.
mm,
Surprisingly, that's come down since in 2000, 2005.
mm,
It came down to 3,
mm.
and presently it's around about 2. So the population in Africa is
It's
not
depleting.
increasing at such a high rate.
Yeah,
However,
yeah,
however, the reasons behind the the, um, the reduction of flow, if you like,
mm,
for want of a better word, is of course the contraception that's open
mm,
for the population, but also the economic
mm.
situation
Of course, yeah.
of the population. And this is also one of the reasons why in the UK and in the Western world,
Mm.
people are having smaller families,
Yeah.
simply because of the economy. In the 60s and the
Mm,
70s in the US,
mm,
you only needed to have one person working in a
mm.
household,
Yeah.
and they'd have three kids.
Mm.
I'm a 60s baby,
Yeah.
and
Well, they did
I'm
it.
one of three. I'm one of three children.
Yeah.
You know, um, my family, I've got two.
Mm.
You know, uh, so the tendency is to reduce simply because. And why did I only have two? Because I couldn't afford any more.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's also. I mean, if you go back in time, I've just thought of this in the Victorian times, without diverging too much. They had larger families simply because the mortality rate was very high. So you could have five children and probably only end up with two surviving, for all I know, two or three. Um, that even happened in roll circles as well. Yeah, now we've got medical advances that don't. Yeah, we can keep children alive. Yeah, I've seen it in my own family. Um, it's a. It's. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things. I know there's people beating the drum to say this overpopulation in the world is complete nonsense. We do need people to keep going. Um, the economic model of things, I've heard this. I mean, I remember in the 70s, my father having to work very hard. He was a wage earner while my mother was at home, well, looking after the house and bringing up two children. Um, yeah, he had to work hard. Everyone had to work hard. But yes, you could survive. Somehow you got through it. Yes, now you need both parties, both partners working. Because let's remember, not everyone gets married. Some people do have families external to marriage. Personal choice again. I don't know, you know, if that's a good thing for society either. You have to speak to a sociologist about that maybe. Um, it's a it's a whole society. Yeah, population's decreasing. I know there've been this modelling, and this is probably why. Yeah, some politicians have probably got the um, like are having things whispered in their ear. Oh, bring in more people. Um, you also have to look at how you can sustain these people until they become, I'm careful what I say here, useful. Yeah, none of us are against immigration, as I said. Processing, maybe there are people with genuine claims of asylum, in which case, yeah, France, Germany, other countries. um, for whatever reason, people are doing a long journey um, in the hope of finding a better life. The problem is when they get into the UK, they're going to be put on a perfectly acceptable accommodation to me, be it on a river, on a raft, or a barge. Quite acceptable from what I could tell. I've lived in worse myself, from what I
I've lived
saw
on
the
a
pictures.
boat.
Yeah,
I've lived on a boat on the canal,
yeah.
so I know what it's like.
Well, yeah, but that's nice living. That is. We'd all like to do that at one point in our life. Everyone should do that
Well,
once.
you have to go to the UK via a small boat and get
Yeah,
get drafted to go on the barge.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
same thing. It'll be the
yeah,
same.
yeah. But it's a yeah, it's what the life they have when they get there. As you sort of say, it's giving out. They go there and they get all the niceties. Apparently, yeah. Yet we've got people on the street, ex-servicemen, as I said before, and
Mhm.
non-service people who've got so many issues and everything else, who would love to move onto that barge, probably. Yeah. Um, hey, yeah, give it to them. As you said, yeah, temperature and everything else. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't be humane. I think there are cases. I think we need to find a way to rapidly, probably in the UK, and I can't speak for the rest of Europe, UK speed up the processing, documentation, figure out how to do that. Um, Maybe we have to accept that we have to lock these people down, unfortunately, until that is done. Um,
They'll get locked down.
Well,
Not sure they'll get locked down.
you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Housed. They'll be housed and they'll be free to roam.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And that's what's
They will be
happening.
free to roam.
I mean, while they're having meals, free meals, they're going to be, going back to base, as it were. Which, we mustn't let people starve. I, I have a lot of issues. I consider myself a liberal, but I also consider myself a pragmatist as well. Um, as I said previously, we should be looking at how we can improve their lot in their own country. And I know that's not always easy. How do you stop people having civil wars? How do you stop other things happening? Um, the argument is capitalism is a good way of actually spreading good news, spreading wealth, allowing people to have a better standard. Um, how do we do that? Yeah, if people don't want to leave their own country, they're not going to go anywhere else. Yeah, they get reports that it's so nice, you go into Europe and you're going to get everything given to you, which the
Yeah.
people there don't always get. So there could be a nasty backlash coming. I don't know. I'm not in the UK. I'm not here. I see things, people saying things. Um, I see politicians, even well-meaning ones, stand up and saying we're going to stop the flow. We've got to get this sorted out, and nothing ever happens. How long are we going to keep trusting our politicians? Maybe we should be looking at our political systems and maybe substituting it temporarily for a more alternative one.